Hello there, folks. How you doing? Okay, so I decided, because I'm out of town again, to go ahead and do a little upload here, talk a little bit about Stephen and Brendan, and I think even Michael Funk and Eagle Nation a little bit. I think it's going to be a habit for me whenever I go out of town to do that. It kind of started with when I went to Salt Lake City and met JB. Um, I was uploading from there, and that was that was pretty good time, pretty fun. Um, did it from Australia. I've done it done it from Manitowoc, and so uploaded the last time I was here in San Jose, and so I think maybe it's going to become a tradition. So it's almost 10 o'clock. It took me a long time to get settled here. It was crazy. I went to the hotel that we stayed at the last time we were here, and the guy basically said he didn't have any single beds because just me, and he didn't have any single beds, and all he had were double beds. And so I asked how much those were, and instead of being 85, they were like 105. And so I was like, whatever. So I decided to go look at this other place that said they had rooms for $66. Right? I figured, all right, save a little money, go over there. Since this place didn't have any single beds, right? So I go over to that place, and that place basically is it's not the Ritz. It's I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not like it's fantastic, knock your socks off kind of hotel. It's not. It's really not. I don't think they even have a continental breakfast or anything like that. But anyways, they don't. I mean, it's a little just a kind of a basic motel with very limited, anything, right? So it's fine, hey, $66, fine, okay. So I get there to get the room, and suddenly this guy's telling me that I have to pay $100 deposit to get the room. And I'm like, what? I'm like, why would I have to pay you $100 for the room on top of the cost of the room? He's like, well, because our rooms are non-smoking. I'm like, "Oh, and like, oh well, so we make people put down $100 deposit when they rent a room because that way they will respect the non-smoking and they won't smoke in the rooms, kind of whatever." And it's like, and I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna hand over an extra $100 to you, you know. So I basically said, "See you later, buddy." Came back to the original hotel, talked to the guy up front, and he gave me one of the double bedrooms for the single bed price. Nice guy, super cool guy. Del Val Hotel, San Jose. Anyway, if you're ever in the area, it's a pretty nice place. I mean, look here, let me show you around a little bit. So got a little, and the rooms all have refrigerators in them. I mean, pretty cool. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not the Ritz, but it's a pretty nice hotel. So it's I was even happy to pay the 85. So, anyways, getting on with the that's why it took me so long to get settled, and I'm recording this now at like 10 o'clock at night. So, all right. Well, let's talk about Stephen and Brendan. I mean, lately I've been going through on the what's called the Innocent Guilty Facebook group, and I've been kind of jumping in over there and seeing what they're talking about. And it's interesting because there's a lot of people in there who believe that in Stephen and Brendan's guilt, and they're in there posting things, trying to explain why, number one, challenging truthers and trying to say, how do you explain this, and how do you explain that and everything. And for me, the whole thing is that their points come up weak, and there's when it comes to the thing with Stephen and Brendan, I mean, it's like one thing you hear the guilters say is you hear them talk about like, oh, you were duped by a documentary. Oh, the documentary, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? That statement might work for people that have only watched the documentary, but there's a hell of a lot of us who went far beyond that. Way beyond that. And we just found more crap. More BS when we dug deeper. So I always marvel at these claims of, oh, you were duped by a documentary. Okay, then how do you explain the documents in this case only further solidifying my feelings about what I saw, the limited amount I saw, according to Gilters in Making a Murderer. So yeah, those of us who've gone deeper only find it to be more disturbing. I mean, for me, it's like I've said, and I said it in the video with Rhonda the other night, that the biggest problem in this case for Stephen is his blood in the RAV. Okay? Why is that? You know, why is that, you say, right? Okay, well, the reason why is because blood evidence is, you can't manufacture it. You can't go into the lab and make somebody's blood. Okay? The only way to get somebody's blood is to get it out of them in whatever way that happens, whether it be they cut themselves and you pick it up, or you get a syringe and draw it, whatever. But there's only one place a person's blood can come from, and that is from them. You can't make synthetic Stephen Avery blood in a lab, right? So this is why a lot of the guilters feel so solid in their belief that Stephen's guilty, because how did the blood get there? You know, they like to make this little joking thing like, oh, where would the officers or deputies or investigators have gotten that? Well, from what I understand, Stephen Avery was cutting himself constantly. There's probably Stephen Avery's blood numerous places there. You know, we all know about the sink. You know, that, I mean, guilters laugh at that, but it's a possibility. You know, Stephen was cut himself quite a bit. And, you know, working on that yard with jagged metal parts and things like that, you know, it's bound to happen. He's a guy that works with his hands. So, I mean, I know. I'm in my job, I nick my hands all the time and like cut, you know, sometimes a little bit, a finger or something, because sometimes I'm working with metal and stuff like that. And so sometimes I end up getting a little slice or a little nick or a little scrape or something like that. It happens. So I'm sure it was happening to Stephen. We know there was blood in the Grand Am. You know, we know that. So it's clear that Stephen was leaving significant amounts of blood around. Okay? That is for me, a huge problem for the state. And I think maybe if it would have been argued right at trial, maybe they didn't think of it or whatever. But the thing is that if it had been argued, you know, well, maybe it was, but it's like if somebody had made the jury understand just exactly how little blood there is in the RAV. I mean, Kratz tried to act like it was so much. It was so much. It was, you know, like blah, 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 right? It's like if it was this huge amount, and it's really not. It's 2 drops, a squiggle, something mashed onto the CD case, not drops, not anything. It's just like something smeared onto the CD case, and then flakes. I mean, the flakes alone are just crying out, saying, this is fake. We are fake. Nobody bleeds flakes. And guilters try to say, oh, it hit the carpet and then it flaked up after that. No, it doesn't happen that way. You know, it doesn't beat up on the carpet. It soaks into the carpet. It wouldn't end up flaking up. You know, there's the problems with the blood in the RAV is why the evidence it's not as sound. It's not as, you know, reassuring, really, as Ken Kratz and the state would have you believe. You know, it's such a tiny amount. You know, that squiggle by the ignition is in the wrong place. If Stephen Avery was bleeding from this finger, okay, and let's imagine, I don't know, that here's the ignition, right here. This is the keyhole, right? Here's the ignition of Teresa's car, If Stephen's coming down with this bleeding finger, right, and turning the key here, okay, where's the blood going to be, folks, right? The blood is going to be here, all here. It's not going to be 3.5 inches away on a console, okay? I don't care how far, I don't care what kind of an acrobat Stephen was with his fingers. It's just not going to happen. And if anything, it's going to be a downward swipe that would have hit it, not a sideways, not a, weird up and down thing, right? There's nothing that makes sense about that. Absolutely zero that makes sense about that. Why, the blood's not where it should be, and then it's in this weird spot, and it's like this. You're trying to tell me that he somehow made a thing like this by turning a key? I mean, there's nothing believable. That squiggle, like the flakes, just cries out, "We are fake. We are 100% fake." Right? Then the smear on the CD case. Well, the smear on the CD case is very little, for me, it's very little different from the flakes and the unbelievable squiggle. Because it's smeared on. It's like, if Stephen is actively bleeding, actively, okay? That means it's bleeding. That means blood should be dripping from it. But we have flakes and a smear. And then we have 2 drops. Only 2. In that back rear passenger door. Right? So those 2 drops. And why are those drops there? Maybe whoever was planting it thought, okay, if Teresa's blood is here, maybe we can act like he came in here trying to load her in and drop 2 drops there. But nowhere else. Dropped no drops anywhere else. That's what I'm talking about. That's why it's so unbelievable. It's why I know that blood is planted. I don't know exactly how yet, but it is planted. That blood is 100% planted. I have my ideas. I know Link and Colburn, who are obviously 2 people we're all very familiar with, had the evidence kits with the type of water that would have been required to reliquefy blood without damaging the cells. These are all things that are a problem. And then, like I said, you move on to the bones, and they try to say that's the primary burn pit or the primary, burn location. The first, burn location, whatever, the only in there is what they're saying. But then there's 2/5 of the bones. There's 40% of her remains there, and of what there should be, basically, right? Because we established that Dean establishes with Dr. Eisenberg at trial that a human body approximately of Teresa's size and weight generally would, after cremation, would break down to basically the material would be a little bit more than enough to fill a 2-liter bottle. Okay. And we know that all that was recovered was enough to fill 2/5 of a 2-liter bottle. Primary burn location, you say? That's why the prosecution knows that those bones found in the quarry are Teresa's, but they can't admit that because they know by admitting that it throws their whole case into doubt. Because why in the heck would Stephen Avery be carrying off bones into the quarry? It makes sense. It makes more sense that somebody brought it to Stephen Avery's burn pit, and that's why there's only 2/5 of the bones there. But they don't want to admit that's why Kratz could only spend 20 seconds on those bones. I'm going to spend 20 seconds on those bones in the quarry. Because the best that can be said about them is that they're possible human. These are the bones that were given back to the hall box. That the fact that they gave them back to the hall box was hidden from Stephen and his counsel at the time. They were not informed. They were not asked. There was nothing at all. And they knew it was a clear violation of statute because they didn't tell anybody. They were trying to hide it. They didn't turn over the final pages of queso to complete the record for Stephen and to complete that record. So they didn't turn that over. They didn't turn over the ledgers that showed all the things that they had given back to the hall box. They didn't turn over any of those things. They were holding on to it and hiding it and keeping it from Stephen and his counsel, because they knew that because they didn't ask, they just did it, that it would be a violation of Wisconsin statute. But Wisconsin statute that was written by Norm Gahn. Probably how he knew just exactly how well, or exactly that what they were doing was not good, that it was not lawful, but so they had to hide it. And in their act of hiding it, they basically allude to the fact that they're guilty of something. Because otherwise, why would you try to hide it? Right? Then you got the magic bullet. The bullet that's found in the garage 4 months later in March, or 5 months later in March, after they coerce Brendan Dassey and suggest the entire story to him, including browbeating him into saying things happened in the garage. But none of this stuff was Brendan's idea. This was the investigators pushing him and planting information and saying things until eventually, and making suggestions until eventually Brendan, in the hopes of trying to please them, would spit out something he'd heard them say in the hopes that they would be happy with it. And that's the entire confession. And then after that, we get into Stephen Avery's garage again, and suddenly the magic bullet pops up, sitting on top of the concrete dust from when the crack was jackhammered. It's sitting on top of the dust. And it's clean. It has anybody that's worked with concrete dust knows. It gets everywhere, it coats everything. And that bullet is like, it has a sheen to it still. And trust me, concrete dust dulls everything. If it covers a shiny surface, that surface looks dull. That's what concrete dust does. So the fact that bullet's all shiny and everything in that picture, and it's actually concaved on top like a bowl, and there's no concrete in there, those are all huge issues and problems. That bullet wasn't found there, or it may have been found there in March, but it wasn't there in November. Then the key. You just go from piece of evidence to piece of evidence in this case. And it's like, it's all bogus. It's all got serious problems. The key. None of Teresa's DNA on it. 0. None. This is a key that she was supposedly using on a daily basis for some amount of time. And there's none of her DNA on it. But there's plenty of Stevens. Very odd. Then it's found in the bookcase. And you guys have heard me talk about that. There's no way they would have missed that key in that bookcase, no matter where it was hidden or how cleverly it was hidden. Nah. It was not there. Okay? That's why Link and Colburn had to wait until they were with Kucharski. Okay? Because it was like me and Paul. I don't know if you guys heard Paul and I talking about this the other day, but what was it? Jacobs, I think? I don't know. What was it? The Calumet officer that accompanied Link and Colburn the night before the key was found. Tyson. He actually seemed somewhat of a straight shooter, And it would appear that Lincoln Colburn obviously maybe felt the same way, because they didn't try anything when he was there. It was only when they were with Dan Kucharski, who like didn't quite realize that he was there babysitting them, and didn't realize what that entailed, what he was supposed to be, making sure of. And so suddenly that key appears, and he just goes along with it, you know. But it didn't happen when they were there with Tyson. You got to remember, this is an eighth search, right? And some of the searches that were in half a shoebox, remember, half a shoebox is this bedroom, and they've had hours spent in that room. No matter how many other 10 or 5 minute searches are on top of the 1 and 2 hour search, or 1 or 2 hour search, it doesn't matter. If somebody spent an hour in that room, you went all through that room. Okay? It's a tiny little room. I'm not kidding. It's tiny. So the fact that this would have been missed and everything, no, it wasn't there. That's, Lincoln Colburn, brought that with him. I mean, and so that's the way it goes with all the evidence in this case. So I really find it odd when I see people who believe in guilt who are just like, I don't know how you truthers could ever believe. It's like, well, I don't know how you could honestly have any faith in this evidence. All right? That's basically what it comes down to. All right, folks. That's it for this one. Eric Jose from out of town. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.